So you may be able to cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Thank you. Please have a seat and witness stand. And for the record, state and spell your first and last name, please.
My full name is Ann Challed-Spong. It's ANNCHALLED -SPONG.
Proceed.
Ms. Spong, could you tell us what your occupation is?
I'm a senior forensic scientist and assistant lab director at Technical Associates.
You need to get the mic up. Yeah, you know.
I don't know if this is clear.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's okay.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
I'm a senior forensic scientist and assistant lab director at Technical Associates, Inc.
And what is Technical Associates Inc.?
It's a company. We're in Ventura County. We're a crime lab, and also we do consultation with attorneys, for education and to help them with their cases.
And can you tell us briefly what your background and education experience is in the area of DNA comparison?
I have a bachelor's in biology from UCSD. I have a master's degree in criminalistics from Cal State LA. When I started at the company, I had extensive training for 2 or 3 years in DNA testing, evidence exam, and I've been doing this since 1993. And I attend yearly meetings, California Association of Criminalistics, and also we've been doing, since the pandemic, webinars put on by various forensic groups.
And have you ever testified as an expert in the field of DNA comparison?
Yes.
About how many times?
I'd say between 8 and 12.
Okay, in state and federal court or just state court?
Just state.
And how many comparisons have you done on behalf of either defense attorneys or other agencies?
I would say 500 to 1,000.
Okay. Did I ask you in 2017 or 18 to examine a shoe, a tennis shoe, from the case of the People versus Monica Sementilli?
Yes.
And did you bring that shoe with you?
Yes.
I'm going to put a photograph on the screen at Exhibit 625. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
Does that appear to be the same shoe you have with you?
Yes.
Could you show us the shoe?
Sure. I have to break the evidence seal. Does anybody have scissors? Probably not in the courtroom.
This is a full-service court, ma'am.
Excellent. Thank you.
Do you need any gloves, Ms. Spong?
I brought a pair with me.
Thank you.
This is usually not how we do it. We'll cut another slit in it, so we have the original evidence tape. I just brought a pair of shoes, and when I examined the left shoe, there was a blood stain. So, as you can see now.
You said the left shoe had a blood stain?
Yes.
And did we ask you to compare, determine if there's any DNA that you were able to compare from that blood stain with a DNA match or DNA from a police laboratory that we provided you from the Los Angeles Police Department?
Yes. We examined the shoe, confirmed that it was human blood. We swabbed the shoe, and put it through DNA testing, processed it for DNA.
And what did we supply you from the Los Angeles Police Department?
Several reports, and in one of the reports it had a profile of Robert Baker's DNA profile, basically.
And did you compare that profile with the profile you obtained from the blood on the shoe
Yes,
you
I
had
did.
before you?
Yes, I did.
And what was the results of your comparison?
It was a single source profile, and the stain, the blood in the stain appears to originate from Robert Baker.
And we often hear figures given as to what the figures are, the odds are of it being Mr. Baker's as opposed to someone else's. Do you have any
Yes.
thoughts about that or testimony?
Our calculations say it's 5.26 quintillion times more likely that it's his blood versus a blood from an unknown person.
And where was that blood found?
On the left shoe, on the inner, I guess on the right side, towards the ball of the foot. So it's on the right side of the shoe.
Was that the only blood stain you located and examined from that shoe?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I have nothing further.
You may cross.
Thank you. So since '93, you've only testified 8 to 12 times.
Yes.
Has Mark Taylor managed to get the laboratory accredited yet?
No.
Given that, I assume you haven't done any work for the prosecution.
We've done internal investigation for police departments.
That's different than doing work for the prosecution, right?
Correct. Yes.
So the lab has been operating, technical and associates, since when now?
Oh, the mid to late 80s.
And why has the lab not yet been able to gain an accreditation?
You'd have to ask Mark Taylor that, but
But you said that you're the assistant lab director.
yes,
So why, again, is your laboratory not yet accredited?
he would like, he's pretty much the gatekeeper, so any protocols we develop, we've developed many protocols, but there are other more intense documentation that you have to go through.
Right.
And we're almost there, but
He's been saying
We
that,
had
though, for like 20 years.
Yes, you can finish. Let her finish the statement. I'm sorry.
yes, but we do follow all the guidelines.
Swig
of-
down?
Yes.
But again, as you said, to be an accredited lab, you have to go through various stages of documentation and allow in a third-party accreditation body that comes in and does internal audits.
Correct.
And your lab doesn't do that, right?
No.
So nobody comes in to check to see if the work that's being done in your laboratory, independent of you within the lab, no independent verification is done, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, I think you said you are a member of CAC.
I'm not a member.
Oh, you're not even a member. Do you
I was a
go
member-
to the meetings?
She did, I thought.
She did. She said she's not a member. Do you go to their meetings?
Yes.
Do you go to ISHI?
No. I actually have been to one.
You've only been to one meeting of the International Symposium on Human Identification that every qualified DNA expert in this country and in every other country attend every year?
Objection, no foundation argument.
It's a stand on the second ground.
You don't go to ISHI? Okay.
It's overruled.
Could I answer?
You said you've been to one, right? Was that your answer?
Yes.
Okay. But you attend webinars of other organizations?
Yes.
Okay. So, besides the tennis shoe, first of all, let me ask you, how was this tennis shoe and its mate packaged when it was first delivered to you?
In a bag, a plastic bag.
In a plastic bag?
Yes.
Okay. And was it packaged within the plastic bag, the shoes separately, or were they both in there together?
No, they were together.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that that's probably not the best protocol for how to package items of evidence if you're going to submit them for DNA testing?
Correct.
Because when you do that, you run the risk of the fact that if the items are not separately packaged, that you could transfer DNA.
Yes.
And so then that skews your results, right?
Correct.
And does your lab have any protocols in place for not accepting items of evidence for DNA testing when items are not submitted per an appropriate DNA protocol?
No.
Okay. Do you know where this shoe came from?
No.
Did you do any testing for wearer's DNA? And do you understand what I mean when I say
Yes.
wearer's DNA? What is wearer's DNA?
DNA from a habitual wearer, somebody who wore the shoes.
Which in this case would be from where?
The interior of the shoe.
Are you asking or are you?
The interior of the shoe.
Okay. Which areas?
Usually you'll do the edge of the heel and down in the heel
Okay.
area.
In the hopes that you might be able to get epithelial cells, skin cells, or cells from sweat, things of that nature from the person that wears the shoe?
Yes.
And so did you do any swabs of the interior of the areas of this particular shoe
No.
or its mate?
No.
Okay. Well, given that you didn't know where the shoe came from, was that not important to you to be able to identify perhaps who had worn this shoe?
That was not requested.
Is there some type of format for submission of evidence? In other words, like if you were to deal with an accredited lab where you would have the person that's requesting the testing, they would submit a request form that would contain information as to the relevant circumstances that are attributed to the particular item of evidence being tested, so you know what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay. And in this case, were you given any information that there was some belief that perhaps there was some type of a racquetball injury?
Yes.
So were you given other items of evidence to test other than this shoe and its mate?
Yes.
And did that include a racket?
Yes.
Did that include 2 rackets?
Yes.
And did you do any examination of those items?
Yes.
And what did you do with respect to the 2 rackets?
Well, you examine one at a time. I photographed them and tried to look for stains that possibly could be blood.
When you say tried to, how did you do that?
Visually.
Did you use a microscope to aid you in that? Or
No.
did you just use your human eye?
Human eye.
Okay. And did you use any type of testing measure, like a phenolphthalein test, for the indication of blood?
Yes, I tested several areas with, we use orthotolidine.
Okay, similar.
Yes.
And did you find any indications of blood on the 2 rackets?
No.
Not on either one.
No.
So I assume once you have a negative indicator for blood, those items wouldn't be carried through to DNA testing.
Correct.
Okay. So the only item that you had a positive indicator for blood would have been the shoe that you're showing us here?
Correct.
And that would be, you said, on...
On the right side of the left shoe?
right here, right?
Correct.
So you did a swab of that area
Yes.
with a clean swab with some type of saline solution to wet it?
Yes, a sterile swab, and then we use sterile reagent water.
Okay. And then you took it through the PCR process?
Correct.
Okay. And at this time, when you did your testing back in 2017, the test kits were much smaller than what we have now, correct? Or do you guys still use Identifiler?
No, we don't use Identifiler.
That's what you used, though, in this case, back then?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And that gives you 15 different markers as well as amylogenin, the gender marker, right?
Correct.
Okay. And did you do anything else once you did that?
No, I developed a profile, and I compared it to Mr. Baker's profile. And then when you have that, you have to attach some significance to it, and that's where the statistics come in.
Right. So, and now I assume you guys use likelihood ratios.
Yes.
Okay. So, I lost my train of thought. When you did the testing back in, was it 2017?
Yes.
Did you find any blood stains or anything that tested positive for biological evidence on the right shoe as you did on the left shoe?
No.
And then I believe you said you were provided with reports from another lab.
Correct.
Would that be LAPD's lab?
Yes.
Does your lab have any protocols in place in terms of making comparisons between your unknown or evidence sample stain to the known sample?
Protocols?
Yes. For instance, LAPD, they have to develop the profile for the reference sample themselves before
Yes.
anybody is going to be able to testify to somebody else's work. Did you guys develop a reference sample for Robert Baker?
We did not test a reference sample from Robert Baker.
Were you provided with a reference sample for Robert Baker?
We were provided the profile in
Again.
a report.
Were you provided with a reference sample? Do you know what I'm saying when I say reference sample? Does that make
Yes,
sense to you? Okay.
yes.
Were you provided with a reference sample?
No.
Okay. Did you ask for a portion of a reference sample?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, you did the work on this case, right?
Yes.
So when you say you don't believe so, do you have your notes, your lab file with you?
Yes.
Can you look in your lab file to answer that question affirmatively one way or the other?
I did not request a reference
Thank you.
sample.
So,
independent reference sample.
okay. Well, you didn't request any reference sample, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you made a comparison between the profile that you developed for the evidence sample to a reference profile that another lab created.
Correct.
And so you don't have any protocols in place about having to develop the reference sample in-house before you're allowed to make comparisons?
We would prefer to, yes.
But you didn't.
No.
And so, again, you don't have those type of protocols in-house because, again, your lab doesn't require that.
No.
When you said you'd prefer to, did you ever reach out to LAPD or to Defense Counsel and say, hey, you know, the standard, the industry standard, the gold standard, what's recommended by SWGDAN is that we develop the reference sample ourselves if we're going to make comparisons between an evidence sample to a reference sample?
Correct.
You didn't do that?
No.
Okay. But you could have, right?
Oh, yes.
I assume you've done that before.
Oh,
right?
yes, that's pretty much our standard protocol.
But you deviated from the standard in this case.
I wouldn't say deviate.
Well, if you said that's your standard profile and you did something other than the standard, wouldn't that be a deviation?
Well, usually we're doing retesting of evidence, and a lot of times we'd like to make sure that the police agency has used the correct reference sample, or, you know, haven't mixed anything up.
Okay, I'm
So
going to check. That answer is non-responsive.
Check, Your Honor, how do we know?
It's not responsive. Sustained.
Move to strike, please. Okay, again. So you said that the standard that you would like, which is the standard that's recommended of all laboratories by SWGDAN that are doing DNA testing, is that you develop the reference sample that you're going to make your comparison to from your evidence sample in-house, and you said that's your standard and that's what you prefer to do. Correct?
Correct.
And then I asked if you did that here. You said no, and I asked you, so then you deviated from what your standard is.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And why, in this case, did you deviate from what the standard is and what is recommended by the SWGDAN guidelines that you just told us a few moments ago that your lab follows?
At that time, we did not know who was on the shoe or who could be on the shoe. So then we'd have to request profile, like request DNA or blood or saliva reference from who knows.
But that's what labs do every day, right? You develop an evidence profile. It's called an unknown sample because you don't know who it belongs to, correct?
Correct.
And that at some point subsequent to that and separate from that, you would get reference samples, right? I mean, that's what...
Yes, if
that's
there's
what-
a suspect in the case.
And in this case, there was a suspect in the case, right?
The suspect being Ms. Sementilli.
No. You were asked to make a comparison to someone other than Ms. Sementilli, right?
Well, when we reviewed the LAPD profiles, we could determine that, yes, this looks like the same person.
Again, I'm going to object. Non-responsive.
Sustained.
Move to strike.
Stricken.
All right. Let me see if I can say it a different way. You were asked to develop an evidence profile. Yes?
Correct.
If there was one. If you found any biological evidence on any of the items that were submitted to you. Correct?
Correct.
And those items were what?
Well, we would develop a profile if there is some indication that there is some biological material present. And in this case, there was blood present.
Objection, move to strike, non-responsive.
I'm gonna allow that to stay.
What items of evidence were submitted to you for your evaluation?
The rackets,
Two,
yes. And
It's overruled.
one was a black and green E-Force lethal reload racquetball racket, correct?
correct,
One was a black and orange E-Force Dark Star racquetball racket.
correct.
What else?
There were 2 pairs of shoes. There was this pair and then another pair.
So 4 shoes in total.
Yes,
Did you test any of the shoes for wearer's DNA to determine who they might belong to, or to have independent proof of such fact?
no.
Okay, what else?
Received a backpack.
Okay, an E-Force backpack.
Correct,
Okay, black.
yes.
Anything else?
No,
How about a black, white, and blue glove?
that was attached to the backpack.
Right. Is there another glove?
I did not examine that backpack.
Didn't examine it at all.
No,
Did you examine the glove?
no.
There was a second glove also, right?
I believe there were 2 gloves attached to the backpack.
One was black and blue and one was black and red, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And did you examine either of those gloves?
No,
Okay. You told us you did examine the 2 rackets. Well, you told me about one. Did you examine both rackets?
yes.
Any biological evidence on either racket?
No indication of blood. I could have, if I swabbed the handle of the racket, there's
For
a good
where?
chance you would
For like
find.
touch DNA?
Correct.
All right. But you didn't do that either?
No. Basically, I was requested to look at these shoes and determine if blood is present, and if it is present, perform the DNA typing.
I understand, but you were provided with a number of items besides this pair of shoes.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And so the only testing that you did was on this shoe where you saw an observable stain, I assume.
Correct.
Okay. And then once you had that item and you did your test, which came back positive for blood, and you took it through the DNA, the PCR process, the question then was, what did you do to get a reference sample to compare to?
Objection, that was asked and answered.
That's overruled.
We had, by looking at the past testing performed by LAPD, we determined that the profile on the shoe was the same or consistent with the profile of Mr. Baker's, of the profile of Mr. Baker.
Okay, so you did not do anything to obtain a reference sample?
We did not do independent testing of the reference sample.
So you were provided with how many reference profiles?
There was one from the victim, there was one from Mr. Baker, there was one from Christopher Austin, there was one from Ms. Sementilli, And I believe that's all the reference samples.
Well, you
we
weren't given a
received.
reference sample, let's be clear. You were given a reference profile.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to make sure that we're using the correct terminology, right?
Yes.
That's important when we're talking about science, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you were given reference profiles for 4 individuals that were created, produced, processed by LAPD.
Correct.
And then you looked at the profile and made a visual comparison to what? The alleles they called?
Can you specify the profile? Is it the profile on the shoe, or is it the profile?
Well, you only developed one.
Correct, so it's
So
the
we don't need to
profile
talk,
on the shoe.
I think it's fairly clear, right? We're only talking about one evidence
Okay.
sample, right?
Yes.
Okay, so again, when you made a comparison to the profiles that were created by LAPD, did you just do that visually?
Well, yes, you look at, you develop, okay, the profiles are based on certain locations on the DNA.
Yes.
And they each have a name, and then they
Yes.
have the number.
TPOX, CSF.
Yes.
Your Honor, this Zilberman wants to
That's
testify
correct.
as an expert.
Mr. Servant, you gotta let her finish her answer.
I'd be happy to.
Okay, so
I'm
The-
sorry. Did you address me?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so in these typing kits, these testing systems, I believe LAPD, I think they might use, I don't know if it's Global Filer or Fusion.
Now. Fusion
Yes,
16.
correct, correct.
So let her talk uninterrupted.
Go ahead.
I believe back then they used Identifiler. Another lab did testing pure gold forensics, and I believe they use probably Promega Fusion 6C. But anyway, even though one kit tests more loci, there are core loci that the FBI develops or recommends for the CODIS system, which is the combined index of
May I, Your Honor?
Anyway, it's the profiles that they put in to a system that has offender profiles. Anyway, those are the core loci. Right now, I think they're 20. And there were 13, and now, anyway, there's more than 13 right now. So anyway, I compared the profiles at each location across the board, and they all matched.
Okay. When you were talking about the combined index, what were you referring to? I asked, the question was, did you make a comparison to a profile provided by LAPD? When
Yes.
you mentioned the combined index, what were you referring to?
Oh, I was trying to kind of specify which locations. I was trying to explain that the kits in use look at the same locations, and so I was able to provide or compare at each of those loci.
I'm sorry, I think something might have fallen.
The scissors are there.
They're in your, I think, in your bag. Oh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't cut yourself. Okay. So that really has nothing to do with the...
No,
The
it
area I
was
was
just
asking
an
you about.
example.
Okay. I think When you talked about the combined index, are you talking about CODIS?
Yes.
Do you know what CODIS stands for?
Not off the top of my head.
Isn't that the database that the entire country uses to make comparisons to evidence samples?
Yes, to convicted offenders.
Well, there's different parts of the database.
Well,
right?
yes, there's forensic unknowns, which is evidence, and then there are convicted offender profiles in there, among other profiles.
Missing persons.
Correct.
Okay. Combined
And also,
DNA index system, would that be the?
correct.
Okay.
You're right. But I want to say that private labs do not have access to the CODIS system.
You have to contract with an
You
accredited
can either,
crime lab in order to upload samples, correct?
that depends on the state or local agency. Not all accredited labs have contracts with state and local agencies, so they, even though they're accredited, they cannot search the CODIS system.
Okay.
I have to interrupt in the interest of time. If this is not a CODIS case, this is
It is
irrelevant.
not.
Let's proceed, please.
Yes. All right. So, again, my original question was, you made a comparison to reference profiles that were done by another agency.
Correct.
Okay. And again, my question was, did you do that by visually comparing the data? As I mentioned, I think the first time, it was the alleles at the different loci to your evidence profile.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Did you look at not just the alleles that were called, but any of the raw data that supported it?
Yes.
Would that include things such as an electropharogram?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So you made a comparison, and from that, that's how you got your conclusion in this case, that the blood stain, I think you said, was a single source profile
Correct.
that was consistent with the reference profile developed by LAPD.
Correct.
Okay. Were you told that the blood was, or that the Mr. Levine was looking to see if there was any blood relating to a racquetball injury? Or were you provided any information about how the blood was deposited?
I did hear about the racquetball injury,
Okay.
and that is why I examined the racquetball rackets.
The two rackets,
Correct.
but there was no blood on either.
I did not observe any blood, and through my presumptive testing, I did not, nothing tested positive.
Okay. So again, the answer is right, correct. There was no blood, no biological evidence that you could see.
Correct.
Okay. And so at that point, you were done with the work that you were asked to complete on this case, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And after you were done with that, and you attributed, as we talked about, the statistical analysis, does DNA provide any information as to how the DNA was deposited?
No.
Does DNA testing provide any information as to when the DNA
No.
is deposited?
No, we cannot tell that.
And so you aren't able to tell us when this particular stain was deposited, correct? Were you also given information that in this case, an individual who might have been wearing this shoe may have kneeled down in an area where there was blood?
Well, I'm going to object. This is speculation, no foundation.
That's what she was told, it's overruled.
No.
If somebody were to kneel down while they're wearing a shoe such as this in an area that contains blood, would blood likely or possibly be transferred from that area onto a shoe like this?
Transfer is possible, yes.
Okay. And the DNA testing process, again, doesn't tell you how the DNA is deposited, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Anything further by the defense?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Arm's getting tired.
Bob, you were given a specific request, is that correct?
Correct.
To examine some items and determine if there was blood, correct?
Correct.
And if there was, to compare it to a profile that you obtained from LAPD, correct?
Correct.
Did you assume that the profile from LAPD was correctly obtained and was in fact accurate?
Yes.
And when you compared it to the blood on the shoe, it matched Mr. Baker, correct?
Correct.
But you were also given 3 other individuals to compare the blood on the shoe to, correct?
Correct.
The victim, Fabio Sementilli, correct?
Yes.
The defendant, Monica Sementilli, correct?
Correct.
And a person named Christopher Austin, correct?
Correct.
And you got those names from LAPD, correct?
Yes.
They had also compared, well, you don't know how they got those profiles, or do you?
I know, well,
You know how they got the one from the victim
yes.
and from the defendant, correct?
Correct.
Do you know how they got it from Mr. Austin?
Yes.
How?
It was a surreptitious sample. That means they don't, the person giving the sample doesn't know they're giving the sample. And in this case, it was a mask.
It was what?
It was a mask.
Mask.
Like,
Okay,
you
so
know,
they got
during
it from,
COVID times, we wore masks.
or a mask that could be worn during the course of a robbery, or
Yes.
let's see. Now, the only positive comparison matched Mr. Baker, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Did you document how you performed your comparison to the blood on the shoe?
Yes.
Do you document what you do to reach your conclusion?
Yes.
Are those protocols and other things that you go through in order to make or to examine the item and compare it with the reference item and see if there's a match? Are those called protocols?
Yes. It's an interpretation.
In other words, do you document everything you do in reaching your conclusion?
Yes.
And in this case, do you recall that I informed you that Ms. Silverman and the prosecution in this case was requesting all the protocols you followed, everything you did in this case, to be sent to them so they could, I assume, review it and see if it was done properly?
Well, I'm going to object. That assumes facts, not in evidence, and
Sustained.
also calls for hearsay and speculation.
Sustained on the first and third grounds.
Did you forward all the protocols and all the steps you took in reaching your conclusion on my request to the district attorney's office in Los Angeles?
I supplied 3 CDs to you, two CDs to you. One is for your information, and then you should have forwarded the other one to the DA's office. We won't we don't send things directly to the DA.
Okay, will the district attorney's office stipulate that I forwarded that, one of the CDs to them? I don't hear a response. I assume the answer is no.
Generally, those things are done out of the presence of the jury, so no.
I apologize. I will address that later. In any event, everything that you did was forwarded to me so I could forward it to whoever I wanted to double check the accuracy of what you were doing. Is that right?
Correct.
Do you know where the shoe that you have and is depicted in Exhibit 625 came from?
No.
You don't know if it was obtained from a photograph taken by LAPD or anything else, do you?
I know it wasn't collected by LAPD.
Because we gave it to you, correct?
Correct.
So you located a drop of blood on one of the shoes, is that right?
I'm going to object cumulatively.
Sustained.
Have you ever been contacted by the district attorney's office or LAPD to supply you with any additional information concerning how you conducted your examination?
I don't believe so. I know a letter was sent specifying things that they want to look at.
So
I don't know if it directly came to us or if it came through your office.
but you got a letter from LAPD,
Not LAPD,
district attorney's office,
district attorney.
and it contained a list of the items they were requesting, correct?
Correct.
And you prepared discs containing those items, correct?
Correct.
And you turned over those discs to me for what you believe would be my forwarding it to the district attorney's office.
Correct.
Did you ever receive any information in return indicating that your comparison had been improperly performed or had reached the wrong conclusion or both?
No.
Were you asked to redo it to make sure that it was done accurately?
No.
You were not supplied, were you, with any reference samples from LAPD?
No.
You were just supplied the profile of those 4 individuals, correct?
Correct.
And you were asked to see if any of those 4 individuals' profiles match. First, determine if there was blood on the shoe, and you determined there was, correct?
Correct.
It's all cumulative
It
again.
is.
Well, it's following cross-examination, Your Honor.
That doesn't change the cumulative aspect. That goes to ask and answer.
Okay. And in fact, well, you don't know how long or what period of time that shoe, the blood was on that shoe, do you?
No.
And you don't know how it got there, correct?
No.
You don't know how long the racket or where the racket was before it was supplied to you or the backpack, correct?
No.
You don't know if it had been cleaned, washed, or in any way handled in any other way, correct?
Correct.
And you don't know if the shoe had been cleaned or washed in any way, correct?
Correct.
All you know is that of all the items, you found blood on one of the shoes, right?
Yes.
And you've given us the result of your comparison.
Yes.
And one moment, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you very much, Ms. Spong. I'm sure there'll be more questions.
Anything for Leslie?
Just briefly, when were you provided with a reference sample for Mr. Austin?
Can I look at my files?
Sure.
Counsel, using your own words, you made a reference profile, did take your own words, or reference sample.
She said reference sample, so I'm
Right.
just asking her when she got it.
Very good.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I thought the answer was that you got profile.
Well, apparently that was a good answer.
got several rounds of discovery because LAPD did a lot of testing, and also a lab called Pure Gold Forensics. So,
I'm sorry, Pure Gold Forensics? That has
Correct.
nothing to do with the LAPD, right? Or did you get reference samples from them?
I got discovery, well, actually, I don't think well, I'd have to look back at the discovery, but I think they used the same profiles that we did
Okay, Your
from
Honor,
the
I'm gonna-
LAPD.
All of that, again, was non-responsive.
Stricken.
I don't, well,
Take your
I-
time,
I
whenever
can
you find it, just
see-
let us know. You don't have to describe it as you're looking
when
through it.
we've, okay. 2015.
Were you able to find what you referred to? When you answered Mr. Levine's question that you were given a reference profile for Mr. Austin? Or a reference sample, for that matter?
It was after March of 2017. I believe.
Sometime probably after 2021, 2022 maybe even?
Well, the last LAPD report that we received, a lot
And
of
when you say
reports.
that the last LAPD report that you received, that would be from Mr. Levine, correct? You're not getting anything
Correct.
directly from LAPD, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It was a report dated April 24th, 2023,
Okay.
and it references the testing of a medical mask.
Okay. So April 4th of 2023, does that sound about right to you according to whatever you're looking at there, some documentation?
Their report was published April 24th, 2023. I can check and see when we received discovery.
It would be after that date, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So sometime after April of 2023 is when you received, I'm assuming, as the court correctly pointed out, a reference profile for Mr. Austin, correct?
I'm sorry. I wanted to confirm that we received the discovery on July 7th, 2023.
Okay. July 7th of 2023 is when you received the LAPD report
Correct.
containing Mr. Austin's profile?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then you also said you received a letter from the DA. Did I ever send you a letter?
It would have come through Mr. Levine.
Again, did I ever send you a letter? You have anything in my name?
Yes. Let me. Okay, July 3rd, 2019, I talked to Mr. Levine. He had called in, and I wasn't there. He asked if he had heard from the DA's office. No. He asked
Your
if
Honor,
we
I'm
sent
sorry.
the discovery.
If you could just,
It's-
again,
It is not responsive.
move to strike. Ma'am? Ms. Spong? Did
Yes.
I ever send you a letter?
We received some sort of request, and
You said that you answered a question from Mr. Levine that you received a letter from the DA. So my question to you is, did I ever send you a letter? And wouldn't that letter be contained within your discovery file?
not necessarily in the discovery file.
So if someone were to request the discovery file relating to a particular case, it wouldn't have all of the documentation and communications relevant to that particular case file?
In the discovery or in communications with attorneys?
Again, wouldn't any, if you look at an LAPD file, which you said you got, I'm assuming you saw that there are numerous emails that discuss what's being done. Everything relating to the work on that case is contained within their discovery package so that everybody
Yes,
knows everything.
but they work for the prosecution, and we work for defense,
I
and they
understand.
have different burdens. This would be privileged information, any contact between an investigator or an attorney.
Okay. So again,
Could we approach briefly? Your Honor, I'm prepared to stipulate that any communications with the witness were from my office, not from Ms. Silver.
yes,
Okay, proceed.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Anything further?
Yes, did I forward to you requests from the district attorney's office to me to
Yes.
forward back to me all the protocols and all the steps you took in reaching your conclusion?
Yes,
And did you forward all those items to me?
yes. I actually found the letter from Ms. Silverman to you requesting the
Fine.
discovery.
Could you provide me with that letter? Thank you, and I wonder if this could be marked next in order.
There's no need to have that marked as at all.
Pardon?
There's no need to mark that at all.
Well, I'll wait.
Can I see it?
So your communications were not directly with the district attorney's office, they were through my office.
Correct.
That it included a letter from the district attorney's office
Correct.
that you just provided me.
Yes.
Thank you, I have nothing further.
Anything further?
Yeah, the letter is, was provided to you by Mr. Levine, but it's on my letterhead, right?
Correct.
And it's addressed to Mr. Levine, not to you, correct?
Correct.
And it's not addressed to anybody at your laboratory, correct?
Let me take a look.
My letterhead, LA County District Attorney's
I thought
Office.
we just stipulated to that, Your Honor.
Well, you asked a question. Major Crimes Division,
Then
right?
this question is
My name,
irrelevant.
and it's addressed to Mr. Levine, asking for a standard discovery,
Yeah.
correct?
I'm sorry. Don't answer.
Discovery.
I'm
Ma'am, there's an
Oh,
objection. That's
sorry.
pending. Sustained. It's irrelevant.
This is a letter that was sent to Mr. Levine, correct?
Correct.
Again, irrelevant.
Sustained.
I have nothing further.
Anything? Ms. Levine?
No, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You are excused.
Thank you.
Now we'll go ahead and take our, let me inquire. Do you have a witness present?
Well, I just picked the color of Inspector Roberts, but
I need to give the jury a break along with my staff. Let's take a,
Take a break then and then stay in session.
I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Let's limit this to 10 minutes. This case is wrapping up quickly. I want to see it wrapped up. That Mr. Platt, see you back here in 10 minutes.
Yeah, we need to recall the bond for 1 minute.
Bond, please retake the stand. You're still under oath.
Yeah, you may take some.
Ms. Vaughn, when you have your gloves on, could you open the bag and take out the shoe that's depicted in the lid? Ms. Vaughn. May that be marked, Your Honor, as people's defendants next in order. I have no further questions.
Anything about you? Thanks. Excuse. Please leave the shoe. Leave the shoe with counsel. Decide it.
We did. Thank you.